Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, where we look to empower and encourage real conversation amongst men everywhere by unpacking topics on self-help, philosophy, and business. Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, here for another week with a full boatload of...
A boatload of fools?
Perfect. Yes. Everybody is here. Everybody say a quick hello.
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 What's up?
Hello.
Hello. That was me. Okay, so this topic I have had in the topic bin, which is what our inside secret to what we do in Simple Minds. And it has had a funny reception, which is good, which is fine. And I suppose, have been known as the philosopher to a degree and talk about philosophy.
Drama queen.
I was one of the first ones to introduce philosophy to the podcast many years ago with Nietzsche and Plato, etc., etc. And it's a journey I've been on now for 2 or 3 years, and it's a journey I find enjoyable and deep and existential, which means that you start to question things around you, I suppose. And also the episode I did, I can't even remember the number, but we did one on Are We Living in a Simulation as well, which had a few interesting takes as well. People say, why do we do this? Like, is it just something we do for fun, or is it like, why would we start thinking about, are we in a simulation, or philosophy, or deeper thinking? And it is about that. It's about deeper thinking. I mean, the humanities, philosophy, the great writers are all things that we need to all be reading. And it's something I really encourage our listeners to do is to delve into, do it through, I mean, there's millions of podcasts out there. There's obviously the books themselves. I mean, we talk about Stoicism as well. That's a form of philosophy. But it's
also a form of religion.
Well, Christianity actually came from Stoicism. They had to get the Stoics on side before they started up their little club. So, so what I want to quickly...
They started for a real estate seminar.
Tony Robbins is now Jesus, obviously. So I want to just talk about philosophy quickly and why I've gone down that path and why you should as well. And then I'll get a bit of it, because it's not a fun topic. Like, it really isn't fun thinking about what life is like, how deep things are when you start looking at them and breaking them down and trying to break from the convention of how we've been brought up. The Christian morality, the mortgage market, whatever it is that we're talking about that is containing you in your current situation, has all been, it's a framework that's propping you up. And when you start breaking that down and looking deeper into your life, into what things really matter, into honesty, into truth, which is what we talked about in the last episode, it can get quite dark, which isn't a bad thing, I don't think. We talk about having to face your shadow. I mean, Jung talked about that, and I think it's something we all need to do every now and again.
Plato talked about it in the first part.
Yeah, and we talked about the cave as well, the allegory of the cave as well, which is sort of breaking away from what you're being shown all your life. I will get into the drink, Matt. I will get into the drink. I will talk about that. We've had a break in the glass. I think we'll be fine. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way in regards to philosophy, and that's why I have delved into it. And I really do. I want people to think about that and to read some of the great pieces and listen to what people's ideas are on philosophy and life in general. So I would encourage people to do that.
Where do you think they should start?
At the beginning.
Of Simple Minds podcast, episode 1.
Exactly. Yeah. Start episode 1. Work your right way through, and you'll get covered. You'll get covered.
Catalogue.
I philosophize this podcast to be that putting into the modern age is where I delved a lot deeper into it. It's amazing. So Stephen West is the guy that runs that podcast. 25-minute episodes. We'll have a link in the show notes. Awesome podcast, very funny, and he works right the way through from the pre-Greek sort of philosophies right the way through to the current, like the 20th century philosophies like Sartre and all these guys, up into the modern day. So if you do want to delve into that, that'd be a really awesome place to start. And that's where I sort of dug deeper. And the thing is, like, look at Alice in the Rabbit Hole, right? I've not even, I don't think, I'm just looking at the rabbit hole just now. I've not even got my head in it yet. So, and I think a lot of people maybe, we talk about, just going through their lives and don't even question these sort of things and ignore the rabbit hole completely and walk past it. But I quite enjoy and find challenging thinking about things that maybe are harder to think about. And critical thinking is such an important part in the entrepreneurial journey as well. All the great entrepreneurs, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, have all talked about the humanities and why you should be learning this stuff. Because philosophy and thinking about the stuff that is hard to think about builds critical thinking. That's what it does. It's a tool to build critical thinking. But let me quickly do the drink. I was at the IGA this morning and saw this on the shelf. I was looking for the drink, so it was on a purpose. And this is a traditional lemonade from France. And there is a connection to the topic today, because the philosopher I'm talking about, or writer-philosopher I'm talking about, is Camus. Albert Camus. He's French, or French Algerian. And this is a traditional lemonade, an artisan lemonade. So, pop.
Sorry, Michael.
Travis popped my cork before the episode.
Not your cherry.
I was just trying to speed things up.
So we're going to have a little bit. We're going to regress to childhood here and have a bit of lemonade. I haven't tasted this
We got any
before.
vodka around here? Splash of
No
vodka.
alcohol this one. No alcohol this one. This is an alcohol-free podcast, so the kids can listen.
What the hell?
There's probably some gin lying around.
Oh, yeah, gin lemonade.
Gin and lemonade.
Everybody
right?
have some lemonade.
Thank you.
From a previous
This
podcast.
looks amazing.
Cheers.
What do you mean it looks amazing?
It just, the look of it, the bubbles, it's just, look, it just looks great.
Looks legit. I'm not normally a fan of lemonade.
Smells funny. Reckon that's happened in the transit?
It's better than the root beer.
Oh, yeah. It's way better than root beer.
It tastes a bit like a lemonade you get off the street, like a sort of kids kind of lemonade, but it's not bad.
Gary V style.
Gary, this
Mine's
is
salty
Gary-
for a reason.
Sorry, Conrad.
You didn't put it in the decanter.
Somebody.
That's just your attitude.
Actually, can I
It's in
quickly
a salty box.
Can I quickly go around the table and just get a quick thought on philosophy and what you guys think of it, or if you ever bloody do think about it, or what your thoughts are, Travis?
That's counterclockwise. We want to go clockwise?
People
No.
can't see that.
I'm not a big philosopher. It's not something that I delve into deeply. My kind of view on it is, why should I worry about it if I can't control it? So yeah, it's not something that I really read a lot about and go into the depths. But I don't judge people for wanting to do it either.
Okay.
I think each to their own.
Yeah, and I'll open it up to anybody. Has anybody got any thoughts on their own touch points with philosophy or thoughts on it?
Are we
Just
going
Going
around?
off, we are going a little bit off topic here, I know, but I think that's probably quite a good
Are we
thing.
going to continue around?
Oh yeah.
I think I like Stoicism. I really took a taking to that, whether it's a religion or philosophy, it doesn't matter. I like to just look at anything as a tool to help me grow and be a better person. And I think sometimes it was interesting, one episode that we had a few weeks back, we had a guest, Shane.
Sail.
Sail, Sean, Shane. Say that a few times.
It's for
Say
sale.
it 3 times fast.
Yeah, it says. Anyway, he talked about the Batman theory, which I thought was really cool, where I think philosophy can be that external outside voice that, like, someone's telling you these theories and concepts of something and you just like, whatever. And then you listen to that over there and you're like, oh, yeah, now I get it. And I think there are elements from philosophy that can help you do that.
The stories.
I guess, yeah, they are just the stories. So, you could do anything. But that's how I do it. Otherwise, I don't go too deep into it because I think it can sometimes be... You become the half-wise where you get thrashed against the rocks by... It can be sometimes disserving in... You get too stuck in your own head. and you just come to a standstill. So that's kind of where I think...
But you've just said that's what happens. Like, if you don't go down the path of philosophy, how do you know that is the case? Have you seen people that have been thrashed around the rocks and are now standing still?
Oh yeah, 100% all the time. People who listen or know this stuff, and then I guess it's the action piece. But I'm just saying is that I'm guilty of getting stuck in my own head too much, and you don't go anywhere. And for what? It's pointless.
What do you mean stuck in your own head? Is that not...
Well, what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? What are we doing? And then you sit on that for 3 weeks, and then before you know it, you haven't done anything. Do you know what
That's a very simplistic way of looking at it, though.
Yeah, but...
Just a very simplistic way of looking at it.
That's sort of how I feel.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that's how I feel. Like, I mean... you can get... Anyway, that's... You asking how I see philosophy, that's currently where I sit with... I shared a lot of videos on my last topic around with philosophy. I think there's some awesome stuff there, but I generally feel we can get... I know I've been guilty of it, and I'm talking through experience of...
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah, I guess it's a good way of summarizing it. So, yeah.
So what about the thoughts on what I talked about at the beginning about actually being good for the businessman, the entrepreneur, to break a method of thinking using things like philosophy where your mind is going somewhere else, is thinking about something else?
Yeah, but you can use anything for that.
I'm talking about philosophy, though.
Yeah, it's one tool of thousands.
Yeah, but it's a tool that's been
So,
used.
yeah, I agree with you,
Yeah,
but it's one of many. And you pick... I like to keep, as I like to think that I'm open enough, and I like to take what I like from bits and pieces and apply where that's necessary. And I think with philosophy, there is thousands of, and I probably haven't done this with the religion, and I know Conrad's talked about this and Matt a bit. You could probably do the same with the religion. I haven't opened that gate up yet personally, but philosophy has been that for me. Where, like Stoicism, meditations, Marcus Aurelius, you read his journal entries from 2,000 years ago, and it's the same fucking problems that they had 2,000 years ago as we have today. Like, and that is kind of like, that perspective is amazing, but does it have to be philosophy that gives you that perspective? I don't know. But, so for critical thinking, yes, I agree with you, but, I just think sometimes, like anything, too much of one thing can be negative. So, yeah.
I'm definitely not saying you need to be doing it 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
But it's a tool that I'm using just now to explore other avenues of creativity, of thinking.
Yeah.
But I suppose I won't keep going around the table just now because I think the whole podcast will be...
hang on.
Jesus. I was ready to go.
Now
I was loaded.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a chance.
Let's hear from Jacob.
Why don't we just make it a...
There will be a chance within the topic, I suspect, to be able to which is because kind of what we're talking about anyway. So one area that struck me in philosophy that I delved into a little bit was a philosophy called absurdism, which was created by a French Algerian philosopher from the 20th century, Albert Camus, and he'd come to the conclusion that the human conflict between seeking value and meaning in life and our inability to actually find it, so our constant need to find something of value that we can hold on to, is kind of, you never get to that stage. You never find that one thing that's going to create that whole meaning for you. He thought that life had no meaning, that nothing exists that could ever be a source of meaning, and hence there is something deeply absurd about the human quest to actually find it, to actually be on that continual search, that it's this constant... It just never stops. You're always seeking value, or value or meaning, and purpose. I think you mentioned, Conrad, before. Purpose is intrinsic in that as well. So his realization, and this was his thought, was that there is no meaning in the universe. Like you can't find it. So it's a constant. What would you call it?
It's just Pac-Man, bro.
Pac-Man. You keep going around.
Go around and around.
There's still meaning in a game of Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Hit the odd cherry. See a few ghosts. So he thought there was three sort of outcomes to that. He thought if you think that you're living in a meaningless universe, which is what his sort of main premise was. And it's not nihilistic in that there's no meaning and it's not worth it, although his first option is the main philosophical problem is suicide. That you, and it's a tough topic to talk about, but you know, and then I'm sure it's not something we're going to hang on to on this episode, but that is.
I think you have to hang on to it, mate. It's one of 3 options that he's talking about.
Yeah, but he says that isn't the option you should go down.
Well, then how, if he's going to talk about that not being the option, then why it is an option? Why is it an option? It is an option. And why should you or should you not go down that path?
But because on this podcast I don't want to go down that, because that's probably
that's taking 33% of the topic. You have to go down that path. You know, I've got here suicide due to life being ultimately meaningless and therefore either too boring or too painful. It is what it is.
Yeah, I know, but that's not the part.
No meaning, why bother?
Yeah,
and I'm saying that is one of the things he said is an option in the 3 options that he came up with for it. He said it was definitely not the best option.
What's the next option?
The next option is philosophical suicide, which is where we probably all sit, in that we hang on to meaning through religion, philosophy, science, community. You try and find something to latch onto which is going to give you the meaning or purpose in your life, but inevitably that something will hit and that will be broken, and you then can't go forward with that, so you find another one. But his third one, which is the one I want to sort of delve into, which I think struck more meaning with myself, is the option of acceptance. Acknowledging the truth of how absurd life is. Does that make sense, Conrad? I saw you wince when I said that.
No, well, it doesn't align with me, so it doesn't make sense for me. No, I clearly adopted the first one, such as a religion or spiritual framework. So the middle one doesn't align with me.
Okay. The last one, the third
the one that you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, fuck. End of the podcast. Let's go.
No.
Go on. I knew that people were going to be coming in with completely closed minds on this and not opening up to...
There's 3 options to it, mate. There's 3 options to it. You want to shut down 2 and talk about one. I
don't want to shut down 2.
I live my life according to a framework.
Yeah.
All right? I do live my life according to a framework. That's who I am.
Yeah.
So I have an opinion. My opinion is I believe in a spiritual framework.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in suicide, and I don't believe in acceptance that life is meaningless. So what do you want me to say?
So let's explore.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
talk about
okay to have 2 different viewpoints on it.
So why do you lean towards acceptance, Mike? Like, what has gotten you to there? And because we literally have a split down the middle, which is cool. We have so suicide is off the table, and we got framework, and we've got acceptance. And
I'm doing the suicide part off the table from a. It's not something we probably want to talk about in this podcast.
So why does acceptance sit more with you opposed to framework?
I suppose just looking around, I've never been somebody I've never been religious. I find myself attaching myself to things like philosophy and sort of seeing that I'm then being dragged down that path. I just like the idea that life is, when you really stop and look around at the weird things that are happening at all times in life, when you're more mindful of what's going on around you, you can see the little absurdities in life, and that life is pretty strange and hard to create meaning from. But the thing I like about the absurdism viewpoint and accepting how absurd life is, that it gives you more freedom to create your own meaning. Like
that's where I think you're at. There is you're looking for. We'll use the word religion, but it can be broader, wider.
Yeah. Or meaning or framework.
You're looking for a framework that aligns with you.
Yes.
Which is why you're looking at this path, which is, and at the moment your option 3, whichever option it is the one that aligns with you. Whereas, like I agree with Conrad, which to an extent sounds like Trav and Justin are in the same sort of realm. Like, I choose to believe in a framework because I choose and have experience that provides me with a far better existence. And that's just my framework. Yep. Whereas obviously what I've attached to as a framework and have put belief in, you don't see that or align with it yourself. So you're looking into further depth of philosophy to try and find a piece of framework, which
Yeah,
I know you've really enjoyed Stoicism, and part of that is aligned with you, but you're still looking for more of something to help you explain it. I think that's what that is.
It's kind of that, but then the other point is that maybe there isn't anything that can explain it, so you take what is there in any moment, in any day, in any week. And I mean, we've all been built up with frameworks. I have no option other than to be influenced by Christianity and obviously Stoicism now that I've read it. And any stories you've been told your whole life are kind of ingrained in your psyche already. But I like the process of breaking these down and questioning them and saying, is that even something? Like, is Christianity, it is all just stories layered on stories, layered on stories, layered on stories that have been translated over like hundreds and hundreds of years. We don't really know what the true story is. I mean, religion is, again, another topic that we can talk about down the track, but I just like the breakdown of creating your own meaning, giving you complete freedom, which can be completely scary because you don't have a framework to support you. Travis?
Is that what you're trying to do? You speak about going on your journey recently in the last sort of 5 to 10 years. Are you trying to create your own meaning rather than find it?
I think so. I think that's all, and I think that's where this whole philosophy comes from. Is that really is your only choice?
Yeah.
And some people will fall back on stuff that is already there, that has been created for them, I suppose. I mean, Conrad, it is interesting because you do, and I see you in a way as a kind of absurd hero to a degree because you use so many different frameworks. I mean, you're a Freemason who goes to Catholic church. I mean, the Catholic religion denounced Freemasonry as a thing. Did. But you know there's an opposition between the two.
I'm a Freemason and I'm a Catholic.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, and then obviously you go into spirituality, Buddhism, and you have a lot of different.
So it's called Omism. That's okay. Omism is where you take the learnings from across the breadth of frameworks.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, coming back to the point, saying I'm not a big philosopher.
But you are, Travis.
Exactly.
But you are.
I flip between the two, so I see a lot of merit in what Conrad's talking about. I also see a lot of merit in what you're talking about, Michael. So it's, for me, I sort of am creating my own framework and try to take a little bit from everything. Exactly what you're trying to say, Conrad. Yeah. And I think that for me works, and if that's working for you, then that's fine too.
Yeah.
But at its essence, using a spiritual framework doesn't put you in the bracket of accepting life as meaningless.
Well, I think
it has connections with Buddhism and stuff like that. Buddhism is like, you are just you are.
Buddhism, life still has meaning.
I get a sense though, Mike, do you disregard the religious stories?
I see them as stories, and I acknowledge them, I suppose, as. I mean, Matt, you've talked in this on previous podcasts.
Because I feel like you shut that potential framework completely out. That there's not.
Well, no, I accept completely that I am influenced by that. Probably, whatever percent of my life is. My granddad was a minister. I went to a school where they had Sunday services and all that sort of stuff. So it is part of what.
Yeah, but the way you talk about philosophy is like. You talk about it as if it's a better alternative, a better framework.
I've never said
that's
that.
The tonality I get.
No, definitely not.
I don't know if anyone else
do you see The Alchemist as a story? Or do you see that as philosophy? Because for me, that's a story with a lot of philosophy in it.
Yeah.
But do you see that as the same light as a religious story?
But it's got religious undertones, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, if we talk about it's the hero's journey type stuff.
Yeah.
It's I suppose the big thing for me. This is why I talked about the philosophy part at the beginning, because a lot of people just poo-poo it and say, you're overthinking things, you're spending too much time on that. But I actually think it's a really powerful method of breaking down your life in business, in whatever. It's questioning. It's looking at, and from a creativity point of view, being absurd is the way. You tap into pure creativity. There's no way you can be creative if you're using somebody else's framework, like truly creative. Like the best photographers in the world don't
Yeah, but everything.
just copy that next person.
Well, everything is a
yeah,
bit
but
of
that's
a,
an easy thing to say.
everything is a
everything's-
copy of everything, though.
Not if you truly break it down and get out of that. That's where
Yeah.
I think true creativity comes from. Like somebody like Salvador Dali or like I don't know.
So can I just jump in? I'm sorry, Mike. How do you? And so this is a question because with what Travis and JB opened up with, and they sort of, I also find it that I enjoy researching, looking at these sort of areas from time to time, but I also find it a rabbit hole which creates procrastination for me, and I don't find it useful in a sort of practical sense when I do. So how do you find it makes a sort of useful base for you? Like
Well, yeah, it obviously works for you. How do you use
I'm
it?
curious to know how it.
training my brain. It's like, I'm trying to break the patterns that have been set up in my brain through frameworks that we've got, religion, being told a business must be like this, you must do that, robot. I'm trying to break that, and philosophy is the only way to do that, because philosophy is really questioning what the meaning of it all is.
Yeah.
Like what's the meaning of that process you must do in your business?
I'm
Break
just thinking
that
of
down.
I'm thinking of the listeners as well, and I get what you're saying, but do you have what's a practical example or something?
Well,
'Cause
okay,
I've only found it do the opposite for me, which is and that's
Okay.
fine. Like, I'm not having a go. I'm just curious to see
Yeah.
like where you've gone. You know what? Because I read this and delved into that.
Yeah.
Why I went and
As I
changed
said,
this
I
decision.
said that creativity, critical thinking,
So
breaking
in
down.
your creative, like the way you're
not just well,
doing your creative work. Or no, I'm just looking for like a real, just straight up practical
what's
example.
business? I mean, business is about critical thinking of how you're going to approach a problem that you've got or a project that you've got, and you can so easily fall into let's just do it the way we did it before. And I think if people are listening and they're on an entrepreneurial journey and they're starting out, I think philosophy should be one of the first things you start to bring into your suite of tools that you can use. As I said, it's not the be all and end all of tools, but it is, I think, a very, very important part. As I said at the beginning, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Reid Hoffman, they will start hiring people that have been studying the humanities rather than any tech stuff. They will actually bring people into their business that have actually read the great stories, and that's what I mean. You're the perfect example of this, because you've read a lot of this stuff and thought about it and broken down things in your brain to try and get
I mean,
to it.
I have, Mike. I mean, but I've also accepted the fact that I believe in a framework to succeed in life. I believe in that
But
framework.
you then move to a different framework and a different framework. So you're sort of there's a segmented sort of movement in
Not
in
necessarily.
Your head.
I believe in a higher power. I believe in a spiritual beast. I believe in a God.
Yep.
Now, do I believe in the Ten Commandments and how Moses got that off the hill? No. Do I believe that they exist? Yes. They're morals.
Yep.
So I do have a framework.
But you still like to think and maybe you have your frameworks, but you still there's a deeper.
I think a lot of things are crazy that we choose to believe and not believe.
Yeah.
Isn't it more? It's about application, is it not? To then to move yourself forward in life and be better than you were yesterday. If there's no meaning to life, then the only option you have is to
I challenge anyone with this meaning of life stuff to have a child and tell me you don't have meaning.
Yeah.
That's what really trumps me.
The big question there is individual meaning versus universal meaning. Everyone has an individual meaning for their life, whether that's something that needs to be discovered or something that they personally choose for
questioned
themselves. But the big question is there a universal meaning? And that's what people kind of try and discover for themselves, whether they've got full belief in a system, whether they choose religion or philosophy or science or spirituality and they just go all their eggs in that one basket, or whether they pick and choose bits and pieces because they don't feel that one system fully helps
But
them
do we even really
understand
have
it.
that choice? Look, my greatest meaning is my kids, right? So for me, that is my legacy. If I'm lucky enough to be doing and we won't go into that word, but if I'm lucky enough to be able to do work like I am today, where I'm trying to build a business and a platform and a future that provides for them, I'm lucky. We're in a country that's allowed me to do it. If I had to fall back and rather than planning for their future, I was like literally digging a trench all day every day so they could eat tonight, then I would be doing that.
Yeah.
So that is.
Oh, that's what we constantly do, and this is what I'm
Cool.
talking about, and that is creating your own meaning. That is doing exactly.
That's my.
Everybody seems to be going back to the point that
that's
they
the
think,
only-
my life is meaningless. That's I get the tendency that you're thinking that.
No, I don't
But
think
that's what it
so.
says here: acceptance of lack of meaning and living on
Which
in
gives
spite
you-
of this knowledge.
Which gives you the complete freedom to create your own.
Yeah, that's what I understand. That's where I agree with Mike. And
Well, it's not what I've read, so unless we're pulling it apart versus how it's been
well,
written.
I think absurdism as a concept is trying to say that there's no one universal meaning.
Well,
However, we can find our own individual meaning.
yeah, I agree. Like, you know, these days there's a lot of like build a business around your purpose and passion and all this. And this comes back to where I opened of like, if we just get caught up on, and this is the other part, I'm still curious for you to answer the question, Mike, around how practically you've applied, say, these learnings. And you said you started this 2 to 3 years. How has life changed? Because I agree to the element of like, if you spend so much energy consumed in trying to find meaning, like
But you're painting exactly what I'm not doing. I don't just spend energy, and I'm not doing this thing as
I'm not painting you. I'm saying this is common for a lot of people. We talk about purpose.
You're asking me the direct question.
But I've done it myself as well, where I've spent too much time on like dwelling on this or that, which you go down this this rabbit hole. I agree with asking questions and all of that, and you should never necessarily get stuck in old ways or old habits. But you know, where do you go from there, and what's like, is because again we talk about enjoying the journey. Like, to me,
Exactly, and
you
that's
can
what
be
it's
present.
about,
Yeah, cool. All right, learn to practice to be present. Learn not to get confined into other people's boxes. But what else? Like,
Is that not enough initially? And then life is still happening to me. It's not as if
Yeah.
I'm in some sort of wonderland of like.
So how have you applied this practically over the last, like, coming back to?
It's a hard one to say how to apply it practically, because I don't know exactly practically what's happening up here in my brain. I can have feelings and see myself handle situations better. And
Well, how do you feel about it? How do you feel now compared to before?
I feel more in control, I think, or more focused on on concentrating on probably the most important parts of my life, which is my kids, the things that mean something to me, not being told that that must mean something to you or whatever. So I think it's a very hard one to say. It's like a 5-step guide to creating a better life. It's
no
not
ebook.
Is it?
Come on.
the philosophy ebook. Yeah.
Does it apply to bigger picture stuff rather than the micro elements of life? Would that be fair to say? So,
Yes,
if you're
and
looking
no.
into philosophy, you can really look at it at the bigger picture of the way you view your life. And say if you were wanting to change your life in a positive way, and then you go down the philosophy rabbit hole, could it be the first step to really change the overarching values and the overarching views of your makeup?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it affects a bigger part than just something you can see. I've got taller, or I'm like better at doing this. It's more. It changes your whole outlook, I suppose, on your life, the people around you. You pause more. You look at things. You question things more, which is not a bad thing to do. Like, it's something I don't think. Something, as I said at the beginning, I encourage people to go down the path and start thinking about things a little bit differently.
Well, it has the ability to alter your belief system and your value system. And
break it down, completely.
But
So-
I think you still don't. You not need. There still needs to be some form of framework. Otherwise, you're just going to be pulled. No, hear me out, Mike. Because otherwise you're going to be pulled in multiple directions. So one, certain period of your life you're following this one, and then you're getting pulled over to this one, and then you get pulled over to this one, and then you get pulled over to that one.
Let me.
I don't mind that at all.
And you end up getting teared apart at all directions.
Or do you have tension in your life which creates...
Tension's not necessarily bad. I'll just give you this paragraph, which will tie both of this, and let's debate this for a little bit, because it's what's got me struck. Absurdism has us either adopt or construct a belief structure that provides a day-to-day reprieve from the crushing impossibility of true meaning. It gives us a structure that we can use to trick our evolution-soaked brains into extracting meaning from the universe, or never forgetting the system itself is a trick. Now, if that's something you agree with, Mike, then are you not creating a framework as opposed to adopting a framework
and that
anyway?
is the absurd thing about absurdism, is that it is creating its own framework of meaning.
Based on what? And
Based on breaking down all the shit that's around you already. Like
It's
the
a
frameworks
framework
that are
to
around you already.
understand that it cannot be understood.
Yeah, exactly right. So,
And
So you accept and move
Yeah,
on. don't you?
exactly.
This brings us into the story, and this is where there's an essay by Albert Camus called "The Myth of Sisyphus," talking about the Greek story of Sisyphus, who
great read, by the way.
chained up death, and the gods didn't like that, so they thought, "Fuck you, Sisyphus." Got death back out into the world and told Sisyphus, "You are going to grab that rock and you're going to roll it up a hill, and when it gets to the top, it's going to fucking roll straight back down again. That is you for the end of time." And this is where Albert Camus uses that parallel with us and meaning and the constant, like, and business is like this. Anybody tell me otherwise? That business, you push shit up the hill and it falls straight back down.
We
again.
are in a framework, mate. Whether you accept it or not, we are in a framework.
Well, some framework of framework's probably the wrong word.
We live in a framework. What are you talking about? This country is bound by a framework.
I said that. I said I there's no way I can get away from that.
Because like that's,
So how do you then?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
How do you exist within a framework without
I
a framework?
exist in my head, so I can break things down on the way I deal with things day to day. I still have to drive a car and get a bus and do that sort of thing.
But you abide by certain structures and laws and systems and processes.
But I embrace it. I embrace it.
And
as
a lot of our
something
laws have come to us via religious teachings anyway.
Of course they have.
And still do.
Yeah,
and we had Jacob saying he's going to send his son to Trinity College, even though he doesn't have a spiritual basis. I mean, you know, is that absurd? Is that absurd?
Of course it is. Yeah. How else can you look at it? There's meaning that he has. There's meaning that the headmaster has. There's meaning that you have. That you look at that. You and Matt laughed at Jacob about that.
Is this a path to
that's absurd.
Is it a path to bliss, or like I'm still like? Is it then to allow?
It's a path to seeing the things in the micro, and this is a really good passage from Sisyphus, or from the myth of Sisyphus. This is how Sisyphus enjoys his. How Sisyphus?
Syphilis?
How Sisyphus got syphilis.
I held my tongue that whole time, and you got me.
Okay, so this is how Sisyphus deals with the terror that he's in, I suppose, the up and down, the constant life pushing against him all the time. This is what he does. Each atom of that stone, each mineral flake of that night-filled mountain in itself forms a world. The struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Sisyphus is happy because he has accepted the punishment assigned to him. He's accepted.
He's enjoying the journey.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
how
not about
hard
the
life
destination.
is.
Yeah. So where have you got to with this now in your life?
Before Mike gets onto that, I have something that, like, for me, philosophy it can come from two angles. Like, Justin, you're really pushing that you have to have some action from it angle. And that's cool. And, like, whether you use a framework like philosophy or religion or
but
something.
It's all, like, acceptance is an action.
Yeah. But also you can just...
To live a better life.
It's an action.
Yeah, but I pursue
Yeah.
philosophy in one way. Like, Stoic philosophy is a practical form,
Action.
a kind of form of philosophy that is
because
designed
the letter, like
to create
Seneca's How to Live a Good Life, that book, or I think it is, like, that is fucking phenomenal. I agree, everyone should read that. Like, that is how to be a good person, and like how to not take shit personally, and like, you know, like you have two actions. You change the way you think about it, or you do something about it. So like I like, isn't that I don't know. I'm not saying like it has to all be action. I'm just curious of like...
What you're saying is the way of coping with how life can just
I'm
throw
curious
curveballs at you.
Yeah,
You don't have complete control. You don't have complete control.
So like, for anyone, coming back to what Matt was saying, like for listeners and for like... I
don't care about that. I do care about it.
You know, I think asking questions is great, but that seems to be... I don't know.
How can you not live your life without asking questions?
Like, I'm not saying that.
Can you ask a question and also be okay with it? There's maybe not an answer. Like,
well, I guess what I would like to understand is like, what have you learnt that has happened practically? Like, is life better now? Are you more blissful now? Is life a lot better now since you started philosophy?
I've accepted that life is hard, and
So
I will always have that acceptance.
Okay.
But I'm not saying I don't have a good life, though. I've been much more tranquil in my day-to-day.
So are you calmer? Are you producing
Yeah.
more work? Are you producing better work?
See,
Are you living life?
you're in a different headspace because you're just got focused on the work, and I must be getting
No,
better.
I said
must
living
be moving-
life.
And I
Yeah.
said I was living a
Is
calm
life
life.
better
You then
for you?
said, does that make
Are you feeling
then
better? Are you
Yeah, I
happier?
am.
Yeah. So that's how philosophy has worked for you? Like, that's what
Well,
I'm trying to
that's-
understand.
On one level, yes, but it works on lots of different levels.
I don't
Why
know.
do you keep
Anyone
looking
feel-
at everybody else?
Well,
Like,
because
sort of-
I'm hoping someone else jumps in.
Well, to go back to your
whether
point
I'm the odd
about-
one out here, like, I'm just curious.
I think I'm the odd one out. And that's why I brought it
how's
up
it
at the
benefited
beginning.
you from you ingesting so much information?
Like, well, the argument here is everyone should read philosophy, right?
I'm saying it's a good point to get some
Yeah.
critical thinking into your life
So-
and think differently, I
Yeah.
suppose.
But then the question comes back to, which is again the whole point of this: why?
Action. No, but
Can
that's
it benefit
That's
you?
a non.
Can it
Yeah.
benefit you in other
Well,
ways?
why
Do
anyone?
you think thinking is good for you?
Yeah, but
That's what philosophy is, Justin.
20
That's it.
But to anyone out
It's about
there,
thinking.
Yeah, but religion causes me to think, mate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. And that's the
So
form of
philosophy,
philosophy.
philosophy itself is a structure.
Yeah.
So this is why I really find this damn thing funny, because it's still
It's
a
absurd,
structure.
isn't it? And this is the thing, we all struggle to find this meaning, and we use this, and we use that, and we do that.
I don't struggle to find a meaning.
No.
Oh, yes, you do. If you don't struggle, you...
No, I don't struggle to find a meaning.
Look, I want to jump in. You said something before about being pulled in all these different directions, and I would agree with what you said, like to Conrad, about how he uses an element of this, an element of that, and I've always done that, but I've always been like, well, for most of my youth, I was just a little bit anti like mainstream religion, and when I changed that and I made the decision to. And all it was a decision, is to allow that to be my core belief system, was that Catholicism, and I would get baptised in the Catholic Church. Now, I did that as an adult, and I did that primarily for my kids, but once I made that decision, even though I'd been around it for a long time, it doesn't mean I accept everything they tell me either. But it allows me to use that as a core framework, and I add in all these other little periphery pieces that I want to make it who I am, but I can tangibly say that since I did that and have allowed that to, and I think that's how I always was, I just didn't accept it. And when I had accepted it, my life has improved. So I feel better. I feel calmer. I don't feel like I'm searching in the same way, because I think I get where I believe you're at. I think I get that. And I think I've been through elements of that, particularly when I went through those 5 odd years of quite significant illness and challenge. So I think I understand. I can't fully understand where you're at, but I think I understand. Since I've made that decision, it has helped me and improved me significantly. And that's why I am in category 2.
Yeah, and I think the way you said that is, Justin, is something that has helped me a lot, is the way of accepting the universe's curveball that comes at you. I can handle that a lot better than I used to be able to handle that sort of shit through my process of thinking about the human experience. That really has helped me deal with, I mean, I live a pretty lucky life. I've not had many curveballs, but hopefully I get little ones. We all get little ones throughout the day, but you know,
well, I guess
there's going to be big ones hitting at any stage. We know this. And I think philosophy to me, and critical thinking and thinking about maybe the meaningless of everything, sort of maybe helps me will help me hopefully deal with that a little bit better. But I want to end quickly on a quote by Edward Murrow, which is, anyone who isn't confused doesn't really understand the situation. How does that sit with everybody? Do you
So that
disagree.
Anyone who isn't confused doesn't really understand the situation, meaning that life is fucking confusing.
Well, I've been confused a lot this episode,
Yeah.
so
Why do you have
So you
to
understand it.
Exactly.
You have to accept that you're confused.
Why do you have to understand the situation though?
Whoa.
No, understanding comes to you after being confused.
Because in the simulation, all they've built is the hero's journey. They haven't built the second game yet.
level 1.
I encourage people to delve into philosophy, just 5% if you want.
5%
Don't
of
go
philosophy.
too deep. And it's not. I mean, it's not. I'm not. Oh, the last couple of weeks with this topic, I've been going down. My head was poking into the rabbit hole a little bit, but I just encourage you from a critical thinking point of view, from a creativity point of view, especially in my business, Travis.
Yep.
Justin. Matt, you're in a little creative business, but you're not the creative.
Oh, really?
But you know what? As in, you're not the. You're
How much
not
content do you produce, bro?
I produce quite a bit. I do
Yeah,
most
how
of the
much do I
design.
produce?
None.
My cock's bigger.
No, as in the, I'm talking about the,
And I'm very
It's not like
creative
that.
too. I'm creative. I just don't paint.
yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Yes.
This is content right now.
Exactly.
We're
Oh,
co-creating.
you know what I
content.
mean. You know what I mean. I'm talking about the
The
day-to-day
graphic design.
projects and stuff. Graphic, yeah, exactly. No, not creative, like photography. Let's touch.
Okay.
Try doing some of the deals I've just done, mate. I had to be fucking creative.
Exactly. And critical thinking and philosophy can help you, Conrad.
No,
So-
just telling stories.
I'll tell you a story. Once upon a time.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for being vulnerable in a.
Why are you
a
ending the
topic that-
episode?
No, I was just thinking.
He does that.
No, I'm not.
We're winding it up.
I thought you understood.
No,
Wait.
I'm just saying thank you to Michael.
Travis popped my cork and he ended the episode.
Wrong order, bro.
I wasn't finished the episode.
I'll
No,
let
it's
you.
just genuinely saying, like, we haven't had an episode like this where we've debated a lot for a while. So thank you for
Oh,
bringing
thank you.
such a good topic.
No, thank you. And I do apologise for getting a bit angry because I had a
Thank you for staying today.
no, because I had a preconception that a couple of people in this group were coming into this with a completely closed mind and would just oppose it straight away. So
Was one of
that's
them me?
kind of where I just got.
But in fairness, I think we can, as a group, talk about things like suicide without it getting into an area of blackness. I mean, it is what it is, right? And it is a
But
big
we got
part
to
of
be,
what
you
you
just
just
got to be
He wanted to go down
respectful
that
of that
path.
topic, I suppose,
Yeah.
and not just gloss over like one of your choices is suicide. The next one is like I wanted to just sort of.
It's not one of your choices, Mike. Let me know.
Well,
If
exactly.
you got-
Well, that's the whole point. It isn't.
Talk to someone.
It isn't a choice. And if you are having any issues, speak to somebody straight away. But thank you guys for challenging me again, and not that I listened. No, I did. And we'll see you again next week. Oh, by the way, if anybody likes it, please press that button and like us and share and comment and. Give me some big ups, please. I need it.
Bye.
the middle ones.
Peace.
Champagne.